She sat by the window every evening, collecting wisdom like autumn leaves. Her journals overflowed with quotes from great minds, each one promising transformation. Yet somehow, the more she gathered, the heavier her spirit felt. The golden light bathed her face as she copied another profound thought, believing that someday this accumulation would unlock the door to becoming who she truly wanted to be. Her desk became a museum of borrowed insights. Aristotle's wisdom sat next to modern self-help gurus. Eastern philosophy mingled with Western psychology. Each quote was carefully transcribed, categorized, and archived. She had created an entire library of other people's breakthroughs, yet her own life remained unchanged. The coffee grew cold as she searched for one more perfect phrase to illuminate her path forward. Sleep evaded her again. In the darkness, she reached for her phone, scrolling through endless streams of motivational content. Each quote felt like medicine, each insight another step toward enlightenment. Her bookmarked articles grew into hundreds, her saved wisdom into thousands. Yet here she was, still awake, still searching, still hoping that tomorrow's perfect quote would finally make everything click into place. The bookstore had become her second home. She navigated the aisles with purpose, seeking the next breakthrough, the missing piece. Her cart overflowed with promises bound in paper and ink. Marcus Aurelius, Brené Brown, Eckhart Tolle, Paulo Coelho, each author held the key to transformation. She bought them all, certain that quantity would eventually birth quality, that enough wisdom would finally penetrate her resistant reality. Her apartment had become a temple to accumulated knowledge. Every wall groaned under the weight of collected wisdom. Shelves stretched toward the ceiling, packed with volumes promising enlightenment. Reading nooks disappeared under cascading piles of self-improvement literature. She moved through her home like a pilgrim in a sacred space, surrounded by the greatest minds in history, yet somehow lonelier than ever before. She read with religious devotion, marking every profound sentence with careful precision. Her books became archaeological sites of personal discovery, margins filled with questions, exclamations, and promises to herself. Each highlighted passage felt like a covenant with wisdom itself. She believed that through enough careful study, enough thoughtful annotation, she could absorb the essence of greatness and finally become the person she was meant to be. The blank pages mocked her. Despite all the wisdom she had consumed, her own thoughts felt empty, derivative, unworthy. She stared at the pristine white paper, pen hovering uselessly above the surface. The voices of great thinkers echoed in her mind, but her own voice remained trapped somewhere in the silence between inspiration and creation. The lamp cast harsh shadows across her furrowed brow as she wondered why knowledge hadn't birthed understanding. Something had gone terribly wrong. The more she collected, the more confused she became. Her shelves groaned with accumulated brilliance, yet her inner world felt increasingly fragmented. She possessed fragments of 1,000 different philosophies but lacked the clarity to synthesize them into her own coherent truth. The wisdom of others had become a maze she couldn't navigate, each path leading to another dead end of borrowed insight. Who was she becoming? The mirror reflected back a stranger, someone who spoke in quotes and thought in borrowed frameworks. Her identity had dissolved into a collage of other people's wisdom. She no longer recognized her own voice, her own intuition. The woman staring back seemed to exist only in relation to the great minds she had consumed, her authentic self buried beneath layers of accumulated philosophy like a city buried under volcanic ash. The storm outside matched the tempest within. She sat alone in her library of borrowed brilliance, surrounded by the accumulated wisdom of ages, yet feeling more isolated than ever. The rain hammered against the windows like accusations, each drop reminding her that knowledge without integration was merely sophisticated hoarding. Her apartment had become a beautiful prison, walls lined with the keys to freedom but no door to walk through. Her journal had become an anthology of other people's brilliance. Page after page overflowed with quotes, insights, and wisdom from voices she admired. Her own thoughts occupied tiny margins, barely visible whispers between the thunderous proclamations of greatness. She had become a curator of inspiration rather than a creator of her own understanding. The space for her own voice had shrunk to almost nothing, suffocated by the volume of others' words. She filled auditoriums like a devoted pilgrim. Seminars, workshops, lectures, she attended them all with religious fervor. Her notebooks bloomed with new insights, each session promising the breakthrough that would finally unlock transformation. She sat among hundreds of other seekers, all collecting fragments of wisdom like precious gems. The speakers' voices became mantras, their insights sacred texts to be memorized and catalogued for future reference. The cafe buzzed with the energy of seekers like herself. She sat among fellow pilgrims, each nursing their own cup of wisdom, each collecting their own fragments of truth. The aroma of coffee mingled with the scent of fresh paper and binding glue. She ordered another latte, bought another book, took another quote to heart. The ritual felt sacred, the accumulation felt meaningful, but something deep within her whispered that she was worshipping the map instead of embarking on the journey. Even her dreams became contaminated with borrowed thoughts. She fell asleep reading, woke up reading, filled every moment with the consumption of other people's insights. Her phone became an extension of her consciousness, constantly feeding her new quotes, new perspectives, new frameworks for understanding life. The boundary between her own mind and the collective wisdom she had absorbed began to blur, her authentic thoughts drowning in an ocean of accumulated brilliance. Conversations had become performances of accumulated knowledge. When friends shared their struggles, she responded with perfect quotes from perfect authors. When asked for her opinion, she offered insights from renowned philosophers. Her own voice had become so quiet that she could barely remember what authentic expression felt like. Her friends smiled politely, but she sensed their confusion. They were talking to a library, not a person. Writing had become an exercise in citation rather than creation. Every sentence she crafted felt like plagiarism of someone else's greater mind. Her own experiences seemed mundane compared to the profound insights she had collected. She would begin a thought only to abandon it for a more eloquent version from her favorite authors. Her authentic voice remained trapped in the shadow of borrowed brilliance, her original insights dismissed as insufficient next to the wisdom of the greats. The weight of unapplied wisdom pressed down on her like a physical burden. Her shelves groaned with the promises of transformation, her journals overflowed with insights that had never been lived. She possessed the map to enlightenment but had never left the starting point. The knowledge she had gathered felt less like empowerment and more like beautiful chains, each quote another link binding her to the illusion of progress without the reality of change. She began to notice the pattern. Years of accumulation had yielded no transformation. Her shelves were monuments to procrastination, each book another excuse to delay the messy work of integration. She touched the spines of her collection like a museum curator, admiring the artifacts of her spiritual consumerism. The realization dawned that she had been collecting wisdom like a squirrel collects nuts, impressive accumulation, but no real nourishment. The mirror revealed the truth. She was not a student of wisdom but a hoarder of insights. Her collection had become a substitute for the vulnerable work of growth. She saw herself clearly for the first time, not as a seeker of truth but as a collector of comfort. The quotes and frameworks provided the illusion of progress without the risk of authentic change. Her reflection showed someone ready to trade the safety of accumulation for the uncertainty of genuine transformation. She chose solitude over accumulation. In the park, away from her library of borrowed brilliance, she sat with just her thoughts and an empty page. No quotes, no citations, no voices of the greats to hide behind. Just her own mind grappling with her own experience. The first words felt clumsy, her own voice foreign after years of mimicry. But there was something honest in the awkwardness, something real in the struggle to express her own understanding. Her pen moved slowly across the page, crafting sentences that belonged only to her. No famous authors whispered their insights into her ear. No perfect quotes provided easy answers. She wrestled with her own thoughts, her own contradictions, her own messy understanding of life. The words felt vulnerable, exposed, but they were hers. Each sentence was a small act of courage, a rejection of the comfortable refuge of other people's wisdom. She traded her shelves for trails, her accumulation for experience. The forest taught lessons no book could contain, the patience of growth, the beauty of impermanence, the wisdom of simply being. She walked without her usual arsenal of quotes, letting life speak directly to her heart. The trees didn't need citations to be magnificent, the birds didn't reference philosophers to sing beautifully. She began to understand that wisdom lived in experience, not in collection. Meditation became her new teacher. She sat in silence, no quotes to fill the space, no wisdom to collect. Just breath, just presence, just the raw experience of being alive. The accumulated fragments of other people's insights gradually settled like sediment in still water, revealing the clear essence of her own consciousness beneath. She discovered that the wisdom she had been seeking was not in the books but in the quiet space between her thoughts. The letting go felt like flying. She stood on her balcony and released her collection into the wind, watching decades of accumulated wisdom scatter like autumn leaves. Each book that left her hands was a chain broken, each flying page a fragment of borrowed identity returning to the universe. The wind carried away her substitutes for understanding, leaving her standing in the clean space of her own authentic presence. She became a teacher of her own journey. No longer hiding behind the authority of great minds, she shared the messy reality of her own growth. Her students listened with rapt attention, not because she quoted famous philosophers but because she spoke from the authority of lived experience. Her imperfect wisdom carried more weight than perfect quotes ever had. She had finally become the author of her own understanding. Her home reflected her transformation. The walls no longer groaned under the weight of accumulated knowledge. A few carefully chosen books sat quietly on simple shelves, no longer monuments to consumption but companions to ongoing learning. The space felt alive, breathing, open to new experiences rather than cluttered with old acquisitions. She had traded the illusion of wisdom for the reality of understanding. She read differently now. One book at a time, slowly, allowing each insight to settle into her lived experience before moving to the next. No longer racing through pages to collect more wisdom, she lingered with ideas that resonated, ignored those that didn't. Reading became a conversation rather than a harvest, each author a companion on her journey rather than a source of fragments to hoard. Her journal became a mirror rather than an anthology. Page after page reflected her own thoughts, her own struggles, her own breakthroughs. No longer a curator of other people's brilliance, she became the author of her own story. The words felt alive, breathing with the rhythm of her authentic experience. Each entry was a small act of rebellion against the comfortable refuge of borrowed understanding. She stood before her pared-down collection with the confidence of someone who had found their own voice. The few remaining books were companions rather than crutches, teachers rather than substitutes for her own thinking. She had learned to distinguish between wisdom that illuminated her path and knowledge that kept her circling the same intellectual terrain. The space around her felt alive with possibility rather than heavy with accumulation. She moved through the world differently now. No longer seeking validation through displays of accumulated knowledge, she carried her wisdom lightly, integrated into her being rather than displayed on her shelves. Her confidence came from within rather than from her collection. She had learned that true transformation happened not in the gathering of insights but in the courageous application of understanding to the messy reality of living. She planted roots rather than collected quotes. Her hands worked the soil, connecting with the ancient wisdom that lived in growing things. No books could teach her what the earth shared in this simple act of nurturing life. She had learned that wisdom wasn't something to be accumulated but something to be lived, cultivated through the patient practice of authentic presence rather than the frantic consumption of other people's insights. She had found what she was looking for in the places she had stopped searching. The wisdom she had accumulated had been pointing toward this moment of simple presence, this integration of understanding and being. Her garden bloomed around her not because of the quotes she had collected but because of the authentic attention she had learned to give to growing things. The greatest insights had come not from her shelves but from her willingness to stop collecting and start living. She had discovered that wisdom wasn't a collection to be gathered but a quality to be cultivated. The quotes and citations had been signposts pointing toward understanding, not the destination itself. Her transformation had come not from accumulating more knowledge but from integrating what she already knew into the messy reality of her daily life. She had learned that the greatest wisdom lived not in her books but in her willingness to trust her own experience and embrace the beautiful uncertainty of authentic growth.